Welcome to episode 90 of Discourse in Magic with the Tony Chang. Tony is one of the best sleight of hand experts in the world, but that's not what makes him so great. What makes him great is his thinking on the matter and thinking about the importance of every move and every action and why you're doing what you're doing. In this episode, we dive deep into those thoughts exactly and how they affect your magic, your card magic, and the thinking about what you do. I hope you love it. Here is episode 90 of Discourse in Magic with Tony Chang. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a good friend and somebody who we've been trying to get on for a while, and we get a ton of requests to get on, and I'm so excited to be bringing you guys the one and only Tony Chang.
How actually are you called today? Out earlier today.
Yeah, earlier today.
In an episode, you were
Alex
suggested
Pandrea recommended you, so that's good news. So how are you, Tony?
Hey, I wouldn't call you guys good friends, though.
Acquaintances, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Friendly.
Yeah,
you don't even know who I am, so
yeah,
like that.
And I paid Alex to say that, so it's all right.
How are you?
I bought some as $50 cards.
That's awesome. And yeah, really pumped to have you. We just spent a little bit of time together in New York. And, you know, one of the funny things about the podcast is no matter how much time I spend with magicians, this is really one of the first opportunities I get to dive into their past and things like that. So let's get into your beginnings. How did you get into magic?
Probably like a lot of kids. You just want to be loved, I guess.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's funny, like, you know, a lot of kids, and myself included, is always, when you look back on it, I always thought it was to, like, impress people, you know, and trying to be like, you know, I was like a fat kid. I'm still fat now, but it's like one of those things where, like, that's the stereotype of magic, you know, like the term like magic crutch and all that stuff, like, you know, like how they interact with people, you know. But I guess I think that's a side effect for me, was that. But I fell in love with it because, I mean, it wasn't like I saw like Copperfield or something, anything like that. I just saw, like, I think I remember seeing some picnic party my dad took the family to, and there was like a clown magician or something, you know, like, but he did like card warp, I think. I don't quite remember. It's weird to try and recall your first trick that you saw, because it's not exactly, you wouldn't know what the effect was, right? It's like,
right, yeah.
it's like, oh, it's one of the 11 effects, you know, no. And then I got curious, and I went to the public library, because I grew up in Idaho. So this was before YouTube and, you know, and all that stuff. So then I got, you know, like, which is the worst thing, like, I think, and because there's no magic shops where I was from. So, like, I think it was kind of funny how, like, you get these Charles Jordan books, and they're really, like, just really old books that kind of discourages anybody. It's not exactly easy reading. And even when you're like well versed in magic, you don't even read those books. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kind of books that you just go, hey, you try to trick a kid, you know, it's like you fool them. And you need page 200 of Charles Jordan's book, you know, or you just go, the Charles Jordan account, like, oh, okay, that's good enough. You know, it's like you know, that's good enough. And then you can be like, yeah, I know that book, you know, but you know, like, it was kind of like it's like you just kind of go in and out. But I think what really got me on track was I went on IRC, and it's like, you know, like pre-chat rooms, like, this is like modem days. And I'll tell you, I wish I know who this guy was, but I just, you know, went to like hashtag magic, which is actually funny. That chat rooms back then was
crazy.
hashtag.
I didn't even know that.
That's funny. Well, it's because, like, it wasn't like, and there was a lot of servers, right? So I just went to like the most popular server, which is only like 20,000 people, but like, but that one chat group had literally like 3 people in it, right? And then I was asking, and this guy just says, "Real to card magic," right?
Wow.
and that was when like Hank Lee got online, you know. And that also, so I ordered that book, and I read it probably like 5 times, and then just started from there. I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question. I
For
think
sure.
Yeah, totally.
it's weird because I just never had that kind of like one moment. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I think people who really are into magic, like passionately, like love and hate. That's usually what passionate is. But like they would, I don't know. It always feels like it's always been a part of them. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. It's hard
Yeah.
it's often hard to imagine what your life was like before magic, you know? Like it's just
Even if you get into it late, like
Yeah.
you're like, what the hell was I doing before I did this?
I was just wandering through life, not doing tricks.
Yeah.
I was a normal human being, basically.
So with that, let's just talk a little bit about the transition. So you went from sort of like you said, every other young kid ever, you know, who got into magic, which is just, you know, sort of slowly growing into it one at a time. And now you are, you know, one of the most prolific sleight of hand magicians around. So can you talk a little bit about how that has come to be and how you've focused in the area of magic that you have?
Oh, all right. To answer that question is because I felt like it. There you go. I'm just joking. I mean, I guess the biggest thing for me, like philosophically with magic, is I think though when I try to describe what drives me to just think about magic is just trying to create something impossible with imperfect means, and that's why I find magic so interesting, is that you can perform something like very blunt with like mechanical, like, you know, you're just like hiding something with your hand or moving your fingers in a certain way, that it can create this illusion of something impossible. But I'm not saying like impossible. That's already an oxymoron because you're doing it, right? But it's the illusion of it, I think.
It's that feeling of experiencing impossibility.
Yeah, but I think in a more basic sleight of hand version of that, because there's a whole nother talk, but like the magic side, I mean, yeah, I can't really apply it to the whole magic side, because I think that, well, I mean, we're staying in the sleight of hand portion. I think that's what drove me to keep going, and I was always been kind of like just always just learning things, and I didn't know it was wrong to do something. Like I palmed cards when I first read about it. I didn't know that was supposed to be hard, you know?
Right.
And then I just put cards in my palms and just walked around school all day. Didn't know that was hard. I didn't know it was supposed to be hard because nobody told me. You know, I just read the book. So in the beginning, like,
yeah, I love that. That's super cool.
Yeah, me and DeGaudio talked about this, which is interesting. I'm just dropping names. I'm just joking. No, but like, but he came up in a similar background, magic wise, where we were saying that when I read books, I just assumed it should be perfect. Otherwise, why are you putting it in your book? So, so for me, I books are a double-edged sword, because it tells you something in theory works, but you don't quite know if the guy. I mean, I just got disillusioned by that like years later when I got older, but it was one of those things that really stuck with me, is that I practice things thinking that it should look a certain way.
Work.
Yeah, and it's not.
Like you're following a recipe, but you know, like you can't just pull anything out of the oven. Like it has to be what the picture looks like.
Yeah, and like I remember when I was a kid in college, I think I spent 9 months just doing the push off double lift. Like I just pushed it. I still have like calluses on my thumb, which ironically helps more. But but it's not ironic actually. But that was the kind of thing that I just that was just the kind of thing that drove me in magic, was more about just just like the engineering aspect of it, where you can just do something over and over again, and just like something micro like that can change anything. But I guess I always get off track, but I guess what people know me for is this kind of minimal approach to effects, so to speak, like just a color change, or something like that, which I guess stemmed from a personal need to want people to recognize me.
Well, it reminds me of the type of magic that we're talking about reminds me of like a duck swimming on the water, where like on the surface almost nothing's moving. It looks like they're floating on the top of the water, but when you look under, the feet are pedaling really quickly, and you wouldn't see that from the top. And like it's a beautiful example where like you do a color change or the most recent effect that you released where you're just like wave your hand over a face-up card and it just entirely vanishes, and it seems like nothing happens, nothing moves, and but obviously people know that you are an incredible sleight of hand artist, and there's crazy things going on under the scene, and I know you've showed me a little bit, so I think that's a good. A lot of times people are into sleight of hand, but you can tell that they're doing this crazy, wacky stuff.
You might not see the move, but something's happening.
Something's fishy. Or something.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that's probably the one thing that I wouldn't. Egotistically, like say it, like, but it's kind of like that. That's my kind of, I think, expertise is exploring that area, not knowing the answer, but like at least exploring it, because I think that a lot of people, myself included, when I was younger, that we always abide by this weird rule we set for ourselves, which is sleight of hand equals invisibility. And somehow this has been ingrained in all of our heads that as long as I'm doing sleight of hand, it's invisible, no matter how shitty it is, because I'm doing sleight of hand, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing, I guess, to get back. That's when I started to really find my stride, was just to start asking these kind of questions, like asking just about concept of like routining and why you're doing things, like even to the most micro level, with like like why is your finger moving? I think like example I use is the Ernest color change. It's classic, right? You push up the card and da da da. There's a lot of people that try to contribute to the Ernest color change. Like John Carney, I think Larry Jennings has something where instead of pushing up, you have your pinky contact the corner and push it up. You know what I'm saying? As you're turning your hand down, and all this stuff, right? And like they're trying to, because you push a card up and down, and then everybody has their finesses to it, right? And then I'll tell you my finesse for the Ernest color change is to not do it. I mean, that's my advice, because you're literally doing what the move is, and your hands
like every bit of motion.
You're literally doing what the method is.
I'm literally so upset right now because I do that color change and now I can't.
Well, but it's fine. But the reason I'm saying this is one is the reason I say that is it's more like I don't know, it is kind of a joke, but the big. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I'm just saying the reason I say this is because what I'm commenting about is why can't we think about color change in a broader sense, right? Why do we have to go? I have an improvement on the Ernest color change, right? Why do we limit ourselves within the range of the movement of the Ernest color change, right? I mean, if you really think about it, color change is you put a card on and you put a card off, right? That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do, right? I mean, unless you're going gimmicks, right? There's nothing. I mean, that's literally what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So instead of thinking like, oh, all of a sudden I can only limit my hand to do this, I like to read all magic books as reference, right? Just read it as reference so you just know that cards can move like that within certain parameters. And that's it. You should not, that's all you need to learn. You practice it, feel cool, whatever, but that's all you need to get away from, right? So then when you tackle like a color change, so to me, I want to show my hand empty, right hand empty, right? Change, hover and change the card, and it's done, and it's one card. So in a sense, in a broad sense, I go, okay, well, obviously I have to have a double and then put one and steal one, right? And then that's all the parameters I had. So then the rest of it is just examining every knowledge I had from reading and people showing me stuff, and try to input and output like just ideas, right? But it shouldn't be the search shouldn't be for originality, right? There's no more originality. You have to. It's more about the subtleties, right? And I think when you see people do good subtleties, it's like you just understand that they're using sleight of hand for a greater purpose. And, yeah.
I sort of compare it to coding. Like there's no point in writing an original code when you want to make a new software. Right. You take what is already there and you use it in a way that better suits your needs.
Yeah. Because it serves a greater purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you want like a video game to be, right? Like you don't care about. It's not about not caring about the code, right? It's about nobody's going to ever see your code.
Yeah, it's about progress, right? Like
right. So
step forward.
Yeah, so there is a big tension in that, right? Where magicians want to be recognized for how clever the code is, which I do. I want to be cool, right? But it has to serve. No, of course, we're all.
It's true. No, it's super true.
Egotistical, But the thing is that it has to serve a greater purpose, right? But so you can't just do like kids like, hey, I palm a card, half back clip and rip card in half, and half of it's in classic palm. Have you ever seen that before? I'm like, no. Yeah. And he goes, okay, it's mine and it's original. Yeah. And I go,
who cares if it's original if it's poo?
Right. And again, I honestly don't mind. I actually encourage people to explore that crazy, right? But that shouldn't be the end of it all, right? It's like my example I give is if you are a piano teacher and I come to you for class, and then your first lesson is to C scale, right? No black keys. Come back in a week, and I come back in a week, and you say, so have you practiced what you learned? And then I start playing it. So I go da da, and I start playing the next few notes with my elbow, da, 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 and I play the last 3 notes with my tongue, like that. And then you look at me, you're like, "What the hell is that?" And I say, "Well, fuck you, it's original, right?" And you're like, "Dude, we're not even. I'm teaching you how to work an instrument. We're not even talking about music yet, right?" And this is what magicians do with sleight of hand, right? We're not even talking about magic. We're not even talking about structure, like anything.
Picturing it, so funny.
Yeah, we're literally stuck at like, hey, this is how like who cares, right?
Yeah.
But you need to care, right? But the thing, right? It's this weird balancing act, because if I say that, then any Joe Schmo working, right, can just be like, I'll be like, man, that's the worst call I've ever seen, man. Like it's literally, I can see it and there's stuff, and they're like, well, I don't care, layman don't give a shit, right? Yeah. Then right, and then it's like, oh man, then right. So it's like this weird balancing act between like, right, and then
sort of this glorification of moves, in magic, this glorification of, like we were talking about it, where like, people just want to burn each other's passes, right? And it's this weird middle ground where no, it's not to say that the methods don't matter and that like it fools laymen, but it's also not to say that it's all about how you do the move. Right. It's so much more to all of it.
Yeah, like practicality is important, and taking what's already available and making it better is important. But also, I think, like you said, it's important to open up that creative space of originality. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of it. Right. But if that's your end goal, all you're going to do is come up with something original, nothing practical.
Right. But I think this is where I go. This is where I say, like, I honestly believe I am not a magician. And I think I'm a very good magic critic. As in, what I mean by this is that I love to dabble and I love to do everything that we just said, right? But I've been lately, for the last few years, been needing to tell kids who I meet in conventions that I always say, here's a good change I've been working on. This is not magic, right? This is academic. This is the craft side of magic, which is just as important as presentation, as its effect, right? Not everybody can be a performer, right? But I'm just saying the reason I say this is because I put magic very, very high up. Okay, I put it very, very high up. So what I do is I dabble in the craft, right? And obviously, when you do good craft, it oozes out. The side effect is a little magical, right? Right, but I want to make sure kids don't get confused and think that is magic, right? And
you don't want them to think that learning the newest color change of the week makes them a magician.
Yes, but just like but there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with, like, when I say, okay, this is, I need to be very clear about this, like, because it's very semantics, right? I'm talking about I am a hobbyist at heart. I'm an amateur, like the Vernon thing, right? I'm an amateur, right? I love magic, everything, right? So, but when I say like a performance, like magic where I want to be, right? It's not like everybody can be a performer, right?
Right.
So therefore, that's the scale I'm going for. So if you're talking about like, like what people generally consider magicians, then yeah, I'm a magician, right? But I probably shouldn't have said that. I sometimes go very extreme on my scales, but
hyperbole is an important tool.
Yeah, but I don't even know if I answered any of your questions. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, like one of the important things that a lot of people struggle with is really understanding, and that I wanted to get out of you really is understanding the paradox between the importance of moves and important and mechanics, but also that there's so much more to magic, and that the aimless glorification of that stuff is missing the point of like a great piece of magic. Just that was why I mentioned the like burning of a pass, right? Like, it's all great. It's all nice if somebody can burn your pass and they can stare at your hands and not do it. But that's not so much a piece of magic compared to like a well-structured actual piece of magic.
Right.
And
which you can insert those good moves in, right?
For sure.
Everybody seems to think that presentation and method is like on one ladder. It's like you can do 90% presentation, but only 10% slides, right? No, it's two ladders, right? Craft and, I wouldn't say art, but like effect or whatever.
But, performance, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say I like to use analogies because I don't have any direct answers for anything. But I think I'll tell you one time I got really fooled. Like I said, holy shit. Like I was fooled, right? It was when I saw Hugh Jackman on a talk show. And he was like, well, Wolverine, like all American. I had no idea he was Australian, right? It blew my mind. It blew my mind. Like, he was like, oh, you're a good day, Mike. I don't know what, it's like Australian. But I was like, holy, what the fuck, right? I was fooled, right? And I was thinking to myself, it's funny how that I was fooled, as in past tense, as in I had to accept something, right, as real. Well, not real. I mean, in quotation, air quotes, real, right? Where magicians try to fool you as like a verb, right? So like a very extraneous way is that we tend to overprove things, right? We tend to be like, hey, like this recap. Remember when I handed you the Sharpie to sign the card, and I called your mom a whore, whatever, and then you recapped, whatever, whatever, right? It would be like the same thing as an actor, like like Forrest Gump. I love that movie. Like him be like, hey, my name is Forrest Gump. I'm from Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. It's like, here's my ID. Look, what does it say? It says I'm from Mobile, Alabama. You can hear my accent. It's from Mobile, Alabama. That's where I'm from. And then you quiz me. Anything you want to know, right? No, what the fuck,
Big
right?
Bird, what is it?
Right, yeah, like what the hell, right? Why? No movie in their right mind would do that, right? Why, right? But yet, magic seems to be stuck there, right? Magic seems to be stuck about proving to you what it is, right? Now, an actor can have a horrible accent, right? And then do the same thing, but they won't prove it, right? They won't be like a magician, right? They'll just still do the movie. But how many times have you seen a bad movie with your friend in the theater and you just went, man, this actor sucks? Or like, or like maybe it's bad at editing or something, anything, right? Yeah. Well, that's technique being poor, right? And it doesn't support the effect, right? It doesn't support the plot or the movie, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I also think that there's another little bit of like another snippet in there, which is that in terms of the overkill, like your accent, so to speak, in magic should be clear. It should be direct. Like you don't what actually goes what actually goes on in the trick should be clear enough that your audience member is on board when the magic move happens or the magic moment is. Not after your recap and before the match.
Right. And no right actor in their mind would ever say, well, I'm just doing a fucking accent. Good day, governor. Whatever, it's an accent. So it must be good.
Right. Yeah, they do months and months of vocal training.
Nobody would even think that, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm just doing, no, what are you talking about? I'm doing an accent.
They know I'm not British. Yeah. They know. Like, they don't think magic's real. It doesn't matter.
And that's the thing, is because I think you're exactly right. Is that we tend to, and this is where my shortcomings come from. Maybe that's why I say I'm not a good magician, is because I don't like. There was a point in my, it's weird. I was about to say career or what, but it's like, but like but like I always grew up going like, oh, invisible palm aces. What do I not like about that trick? I was very like engineering mind, where I came up with a lot of my, like the effects that people know me for, magician side, basically. And then one day I just thought to myself, I just said, I feel like I'm confident enough that given enough time, I can come up with a good method. Not original. I'm just talking about good method for any effect I want to do. Right. And then it came to my mind, I just said, now what the hell do I want to do? Right. Now it got really weird, right? And this is where I've been still searching, is that it's like, well, what am I saying, right? Maybe there's like a weird midlife crisis thing, like, what does my magic mean? I don't think it has to go that deep and pretentious, I guess. But I think that when you look at just like basic card tricks and stuff, it is very much, you pick a card and I find a card, and I was really interested in the meta-ness of that, like, well, can you do a card trick where you don't have to pick a card or find it,
right?
Or what if, because if you really think about it, like all effects, all card tricks is like you pick a card and then here's our infinite creativity and awesomeness, and then I find your card.
Right.
Yeah. Right? So it's like, what? Like, it makes no. I mean, So what is the purpose of picking and finding cards? It's just like to define it as a card trick. You know, like these are the kind of stuff that I found interesting, you know. But then it's kind of like, well, then you have to kind of show an effect, right? And I think that it's hard to explain. Like there was this weird effect I wanted to do, which is I come out, you know, it's like a parlor show or something. I come out from behind the curtains and I say this whole line, it's like, hey, I'm glad you guys are here. It's my first time performing, and I want to do a classic of card magic. It's where you pick a card and I find it. So I spread the cards out, and somebody in the audience picks a card from the table, and they show this, say, Ace of Spades, right? They put it in, they shuffle, right? And then I spread the cards out again, and I point to somebody else and say, here, take out any card you want. You're going to find his card. And they pull out a random card, right? And then I look at it, and I show everybody, and I say, Jack of Hearts. Right? And they say, no, that's not my card, right? I look confused. And then the lights turn out for like 3 seconds, turn back on. I'm not there. The table's clean. I come out of the curtains again, right? And I repeat the same thing, like the same lines. I spread the cards. And these are like, in my head, I don't worry about method right now, you know? So I'm just like, just clean, right? So I spread out the cards and I point to that first guy again. I just go, I'm like, how about you? Pick any card you want. And they pick any card they want, and it's the Ace of Spades again, right? Show everybody, put it back in, they shuffle, right? And you spread out the cards again, and I go, oh, the second guy. Take out any card you want, and they take it out, and I do the same thing. I show us the Jack of Hearts again. And then if they say no, it repeats again, right? I just keep doing it until they say yes, right? And then when they when they say yes, I just go, awesome, thank you, and I just go to the next trick. Like I used to go. You don't acknowledge it. I used to go. Oh well, once they say yes, then I do a top change and change it to the Ace of Spades. Right. No, that's not the magic of it, right? That to me is not the magic of this. Like, what if you locked those two things, right? Even though it seems impossible, like you can still always pick the Ace of Spades and always pick the Jack of Hearts, right? Mm-hmm. And then what is this? What is it about, right? Now, to me, that's a very effect, right? That's a great that to me, that's what interests me. It's like a very surreal, right? It's like, you know, like when people leave, right? Like, and I go, oh, what how was the show?
What did I just see?
Yeah, I want people to be like, you just gotta go experience it, man. Like, you just gotta go see. I don't know what the fuck's going on, right? But isn't that what magic should be? I mean, not like to straight up like confusion. I mean, there is a purpose in that string, right? But I really like the surrealness of what's going on.
You know, I once had a really interesting conversation with Mark Correa, and he said something really interesting. He said, magic is the ultimate version of you have to see it. You have to be there, you know? And like, I that always resonated with me, you know, like you can't necessarily say that about a comedy show, you know, like obviously it's different watching it at your house than it is going to see it in a live theater. And obviously, you know, a movie on a really big screen is different than watching it on your little tiny laptop or whatever. But magic is the one thing where you can say, no, you have to go there. It's there and you have to go see it, you know? And that's such an interesting thing to try to live up to, you know, that idea of like.
No one's ever really going to say, oh, they just edited that video to make him funny. You know what I mean? They're going to say they edited the video to make that magic happen.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that what's even more interesting is that people talk like this about something so trivial, right? Yeah, I'm doing card tricks, for God's sakes, right? But that's the beauty of it. I don't shy away from it not being real magic and like, can I read minds? No, I don't care about any of that. What I find interesting is that there will be a guy at a bar telling me about this stupid rope trick he's seen 10 years ago, and he still remembers it till this day. And I asked him, what's the effect? He's like, I don't know. You just put two ropes together. It's like, what? It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't, okay, you know, but, and there's another interesting phenomenon. I'm sure you guys experienced this, is that, you know, like you perform for like a person, and then like their friend hears about you, you know, and they come up to you and they say like, you know, like they say what you did for their friend, which you did.
Do the trick where it's under the box.
Yeah, or even more is that they tell you a trick that you never did.
that you can't even do, right? Like the most impossible thing.
You do quantum bender, and then you do smoke, and you put the coin in his mouth, and the smoke came out, and blah, like made it crazy, right? And then we always have the lines like, whoa, wow, I wish I can do that or something, like that. But then you go, why do they do that, right? And to circle around to what you were saying is that I think that a lot of people want their friends to feel what they felt, but they don't have the visual reference of us performing magic there. So subconsciously, they usually upplay it because they want, right? And I think in a sense, when people want to know how it's done, I think, one of it is kind of like, oh, really, that's it? But I think that another part is they want to feel how you feel when you see. It's like, it's like that annoying friend where like you're watching a movie and he starts like hitting you. You're like, hey, here's the best part. And you're like, what am I? It's like, I'm not, it's like I'm staring at the screen. It's like, like, what I'm saying? Because they want to, because they're your friend, right? They want to see you enjoy it, right? Yeah.
And it's also, I'm thinking about it particularly with your magic, which you said is very stripped back. Thinking about, like the release that you just put out where, it is, in my opinion, one of the most like clean looking color changes I've ever seen. Like you just hover your hand over the card and it changes. Saying that doesn't quite do it justice because they won't be able to understand how fair it was. Right? Like there's plenty of magicians who can wave their hands over cards, but it looks ugly. So in order for them to get the same experience, they need to come to you because you're the person who actually can demonstrate it. Like even if they do have a verbal understanding of it, it won't do it justice because visually is the only way it can be experienced.
I get. Yeah. I mean, but I think there's more. I mean, I think what we were talking about was more with laymen, I guess.
For sure.
No, that's what I'm talking about too.
Yeah, I think with laymen, they just it's hard because I think a bunch of the appreciation is also as a magician knowing so many methods and seeing so many versions of color changes and appreciating that. You know what I'm saying? Where like layman, there's they'll appreciate it, but also it's kind of like, I'm not saying like color change is art, but I'm not also saying that why do you go to like a random gift store and there's shirts with the three wolves howling over a moon, and people consider that art, like that very I don't know if that's what I'm trying to say is that layman, I think that like a color change is still a color change in a sense because one, it's they don't know what good magic looks like, right? And
they don't have a reference.
They don't have a reference, and doesn't mean you can do shitty magic. I think also a lot of magicians' girlfriends like my magic for some reason. I think there's it's weird. I'm thinking about it. It's like you should ask anybody that knows me and has a girlfriend or a wife. A lot of them say, and I always wonder why. And there's one they just go. They have met a lot of magicians, like through like conventions and whatever, and yada yada yada, and then they can see that, like the way I handle. Or this was weird to it up, but I think that once from a layman perspective to see all those different things and see that, like I think somebody from Illusions asked me once when they were hanging out, like. I showed him the color change, and he says, well, what if I came up with a gimmick and just looks just as good as yours? Which version would you do? Because, the gimmick version would be easier, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, I would do mine. And he goes, why? Because you're a move monkey? And I said, yeah. And I think that also, audiences can feel, when you when you know what I'm saying, the love, you know, like when you
right.
want
The dedication,
when you want to
and the
show
passion
somebody
involved.
something, you know, which in a good sense, whoever created that gimmick will also have that same feeling too, because he made this cool gimmick, right? He wants to show people too. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's the same thing. But
and I think that that's really valuable for people to understand that there can be reason why you're doing something that's incredibly difficult, and it's not to show off the difficulty of what you're doing, but it might instead be your passion for it. It might be your journey to it.
yeah,
And how you,
I think still the biggest thing is that there is no easy or hard. I tend to think of it as inefficient or efficient, right? And I think that's the status you need to go by, because hard is relative, right? Hard is relative. You can say that when people say I use easy methods, it's you can not all the time it looks efficient, right? Not all the time, you know, like I can go like Ray Cosby's Deep Thought, you know, like where you fan the cards and you pull out a card and you have to jog a card and then do the ambitious riser move to switch out the card. I always say things like I love that move, but I don't do that. I don't like that in that context, because I just say to anybody who does hard moves and you can feel it, I just say to them, how hard is it to do that? Right. So in this context is I fan the cards and I jog a card. And the effect is I can read your mind, so I got a card and you name it. Right. How hard is it for me to show you that one card? Right. It seems like a dumb question, right? But
people make it seem more difficult,
right? Because
and it takes more time because they're trying to hide a method in it.
And why don't people say anything about that? Right? It's because sleight of hand equals invisible, right? We can cover it, right? You're like, oh, why did you think of that? Blah blah blah, and you're like, gee, and I always say it like jokingly, but to make people realize, like, how hard is it really to show you a card, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, it's like, you have like, it's like Red Hot Mama, right? This is more subtle, but in Red Hot Mama, you spread the cards out on the table and there's one red card and a blue deck, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then, but you have to like close it up, pick it up, and then do a double lift, right? Yeah. So you go, how hard is it to show me one card, right? It's like, how hard is it to just push it out, right? So it's funny, right? So one method would be to figure out a switch by doing exactly what you should do, right? Just pull out the card, right? Everything else, method-wise so far, is only to serve the method, right? Why are you picking up the cards, right? Why are you doing double? Well, you have to, right? That's just, right? So let's go through the way I would think about this, right? And I'll tell you, the best solution I ever heard is Paul V. Hill's, and it isn't method, and it isn't a method, which is awesome, right? But there's two ways you can tackle this, right? One is you can't spread out the cards on the table, right? Because it's too clean, right? Right. Like Roberto Joby, I think in, what is that? Confident? Like, what's that small blue book of his? Where he talks about where if you have a selection being made and you spread out the cards in your hands, right? For them to pick a card. And when they put the card back in, you can't just like dribble the cards and have them put it back. That's why they always go, let me put it back, because you gave them a freedom and you're restricting that freedom when you put it back, right? Right. But so if you start out with the dribble and so it won't feel like, you have, you know what I'm saying? So absolutely. Right. Sure. So then that's one way, is to restrict it, right? And just go right into it, right? But you want also that clearer picture, right? I mean, that's the thing is that you have to just think about, if you really had magical powers, what would you do, right? And some reason you're doing card tricks. Right?
Yeah. And just asking, just like why over and over again, like just get deep into like, why am I doing this? Like, why? One of my favorite of yours that you mentioned, which I know, Chris Mayhew told me about an update to one of his tricks because of the question, which is, how hard is it? He had an upjogged card that he removed, right? And it was, how hard is it to remove that card? And how hard is, and I think that that's a really good thing for people who are looking to maybe take a grain from this into their own Magic, is to just say like all these things that I'm bending over backwards to do because of the method. There's another thing. Do you know who Tim Ferriss is? So he is he's like an entrepreneur, and he's written a whole bunch of like New York Times best-selling books. And one of the questions that he asks when he does things is, he says, what would this look like if it were easy? And I think it's very similar in terms of not the method, but the effect, like, what would this effect look like if it were simple? If I didn't have to re-deal out the cards 4 times and pick up the deck to palm it and take it back off and put it on top.
That's the thing. No, you're exactly right. It's I mean, to rephrase it in the magical terms, like, well, if you have magical powers, you wouldn't deal the cards 4 times, right? I mean, that's just to serve the method, right? And then it becomes this whole thing where I remember, like, Doug McKenzie showed me this stupid trick where you like deal 8 piles and switch whatever the hell it is, and then he found my card and he goes, "Is that it?" And I go, "Yeah, but I don't care anymore," and then he goes, "But I fooled you," and I go, "I'm sure it's like I'm sure it's like some weird 1880 dealing method I don't care about." And he goes, "Yeah, but you don't know the method, right?" I'm like, "No, but I don't care either." And he goes, "Then I fooled you." I'm like, "Okay, you know what I'm saying?" Like, right? And you can tell that sometimes Magic has become like that, where it's like, "Oh, hopefully he doesn't kill me for this. It's just a little moment. So he shows the card, right, in a spread on a table. And he reveals that there's this card face down, it's red. And he has this whole process where, like, different people in the audience name a portion of the card, that kind of thing. So he takes the approach of how they're feeling, right? And then he spreads the card and he doesn't say anything. There's a card, there's odd back, and everybody just starts like gasping. They're like, "No way," right? No, right? They're already like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
And then, so his approach is to change the moment, right? So he's about to pull out the card and he looks up and then he just goes, "Nah, you guys don't care about this." And he just squares up the cards. Everybody just goes, "Oh my God." Right? And it just creates another great moment, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? And
see, that's a method I would never have even, I guess method's the wrong term, but it's an approach I never would have thought of taking, because you restructured. But what I was thinking was, you either need to invent a new method, so a new like sleight that makes the action look natural, or you need to find a way to justify the unnatural action. But he just changed the routine, right? He just made it another moment in his show.
And I think that I think the biggest thing that kept me going is I don't want to justify bad moves, right? I can't.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I just go, well, if I'm, it's basically what happens is that if you're going to say there's a cards are spread on the table and I got to pull out a card and I have to switch it, right? And it has to look like this, right? And then basically you have purpose. If you want to think about slide hand, all of a sudden slide hand has a purpose, right? It's not the other way around where you go, "Hey, I'm going to use my favorite method," right? No, there's no, that should be destroyed, right? Use your favorite controller to the top. No, fuck up. No, that's not how you're supposed to think about slide hand, right? It's not your favorite, right?
It's the best, or the most efficient,
context and for that, right? Yeah. So then is your mission to get there, but doesn't mean you'll get there, right? But
it might not exist.
But that's where you compromise, right? Like then you go, all right, well, you just keep taking steps back, right? Until your knowledge of slides kind of meets somewhere. And sometimes you'll go somewhere that you haven't even thought of, right?
Right. And you might have to invent a method that's never been invented, kind of like some of the things that you do, or you might have to, invent like a presentational addition in order to pull this thing off as close to the way that you envisioned it as possible.
I would say I haven't invented anything new. I just think that
or reposition.
No, I just think that once you put things that you learned together and actually use it for a purpose, like what we're saying, then it seems new, right? It seems like it's new because I don't think people,
but it's just
I just don't people think that hard about it. And
it's interesting because that can apply to other things too, right? Like I don't know, it's just a random example, but like, did Mark Zuckerberg invent Facebook, or did he look at the tool of the internet and think it could be used this way?
It's not MySpace, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask along these lines is, we're talking about the importance of, picking the right methods and not overdoing it and stuff like that. And in conjunction with the difficulty of that, there's also a wealth of information out there. There's just an outlandish amount of, you could just buy a piece of magic every day forever, right? And you would never run out and you would never catch up. And there's so much out there. And I especially can imagine how difficult it is for the young people getting into magic right now. So what advice would you give them in terms of sifting through all of the garbage? It's hard to know, because someone who you look up to online, they say that something is so good, all of a sudden you think it's good, and maybe it takes you 7 years to realize that you've been doing something crappy. So what advice do you have for young people to sift through the garbage?
I think that
only buy Tony's products. No,
I don't have anything out there, basically. It's not mine. I think that, well, I guess you have to examine if you are that kind of magic lover, magician. Is that I think that you learn magic best by knowing what's wrong. And I think that, like, if a kid in convention goes, "Oh, what's this second deal all about? I want to learn it." And Steve 40 is sitting next to him and he goes, "Yeah." And he shows him the best method. I don't think he'll understand, right? I don't think he would know what that means.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that magic, I mean, you're talking more about the magic market, but you're talking about sifting through bad slights or something like that.
Yeah.
I would say
or like,
that, I would say that there's nothing wrong with anything as long as you realize it's used for reference, right? It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the application. It's what to do with it, right? And I think that's just as worthy as, you not knowing a method is just as important as you knowing a method. That's kind of my weird approach to it, because ultimately, it has to kind of takes a certain somebody to keep sifting through that crap, right?
Yeah, you have to make every mistake. You have to fall out of the stupid tree and hit every branch on the way down in order to like get to the bottom, right? And know what was wrong. You have to do all the wrong things first, right? Like,
also I think importantly, like, what's another thing to think about is, don't focus, at least in my opinion, don't focus on whether or not you've been fooled as the standard for something being quality. Like, if something fooled you and you want to learn how it works to, increase your, knowledge of magic and the methods that exist, that's fine. But just because it fooled you and you didn't know how it works doesn't mean it's something that would work in performance for you. Like, it doesn't make it good magic because, you bought a $7,000 gimmick.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
There's a wrong number to choose. But
what advice would you give to somebody right now who very much feels that they can get by without focusing on the difficult methods. If they're like, no one notices if I get my break by pushing it off when no one's looking and putting it back, or I don't need to learn, difficult things right now. I can, the easy stuff like gets people good enough. Would you say that that's a fine approach, or would you give them a piece of advice to steer them in another direction?
I mean, there's no. Are you talking about like a stereotypical like worker? That like
yeah, I
guess.
Are you
talking about hobbyist, like amateur?
I guess so. Both, I mean, why is the distinction necessary for that?
Because I think that a lot of times when you hear this stereotypical, like, I can get with it with laymen, I think usually comes from my experience from workers. And I'm not saying all workers are bad, right? I just think that there's no, like, to that, I mean, again, this is very stereotypical, but it's more like, like, I think that they, as long as it makes them the money, is good enough, right? So, and I think that's why I make the distinction, because amateurs like me, if I hear that from them, then there's nothing I can really do to change their mind, because they're in it for people to like, yay, like, oh, you do magic. You know what I'm saying? That's all they're in the game for. It's like Banksy, this graffiti artist. He says he talks about artists too, where they just go into it for the fame, and he says it's like saying to your friend, hey, I need to go take a shit later, just go eat. Right? So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I think I mean, it's true, right? I mean, it's the process, right? It's what I said in the beginning, is that it always, I think the people that stay in it is the people that will walk back to their house because they forgot a deck of cards, right? It feels like it's a part of them. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying I'm good. You don't have to be good, right? But you're always a student, right? And you always want to keep learning. That's probably why we always fall on crap, because we're too gullible, because we want to learn, right? And then sooner or later, when you get older and jaded, you find that, like, you already learned a lot, right? And that it was easier. This is my own personal experience. It's always been easier for me to always know there's somebody better, right? And there always will be, right? But it gets. But then as you get older and more experienced, it gets narrower, right? Not saying that you're better than anybody else, but then it's that.
But your field of specialty gets narrower too.
But also, like, it's you start to like realize where your path in magic is, and it's not like you don't care about anybody else's work, No,
but their work helps you define your path,
And I think, Paul Vigil says something to me, like, we're brothers, and he always, like, always hang out and gives me a bunch of advice and everything, right? Just hands me everything, like, like just like advice, just any trick I want to learn from him. I'm like, holy crap, it's amazing, right? And I try to show him magic, and he doesn't give a shit, right? And then I asked him, I was like, why do you hang out with me, man? It's like, I know you don't dig my style of magic. And he goes, just because we don't, just because I don't like your magic doesn't mean I don't respect you as, in our field, right? And that took me back, that was pretty cool, and it's bigger than and that's why themselves. I always, so when people say that to me, like, and I do, and I just go, why the hell you fucking hanging out? It's weird, because I don't, and then they say that to me, and then that's why I always go back to the same thing. I say, I'm not a magician. I'm a good magic critic. I can make anybody's tricks better, right?
but I respect magic high enough to not throw around that word lightly, right? To not have that whole like, well, I can get away with it. Well, fuck you. You know, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like that shouldn't. I mean, what name any other craft or art or anything that
I'm thinking like if you're like a wedding band and you're like it sounds enough like the song we're covering. You know what I mean? They kind of know it's Adele or whatever.
But I don't think I mean, I still think they're better. You know? Well, I think maybe like it'll be like, to go back, like a pianist would never say, "Oh, I can get away with it." Right? And when they don't even have to think about that. There's no
getting away
sect.
with anything.
There's no sect in the piano performers of the world that are rogue. There's not like 30% of piano players say it's good enough. Right? But they can say it's good enough because I'm an amateur and I play on the off hours, right? Right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, totally. I get you, right? But they're not saying I'm the fucking best pianist in the world. Right? Yeah. So I think that's the gauge that I put myself in, you know? I think I can contribute to the magic community, like as a teacher, as like, you know, as just like, basically I want people, when they see my stuff or the methods or whatever, I want them to just say, wow, I didn't know you could think about sleight of hand that deep. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Right. And then, you know, 5 years of your life to learn an ambitious riser or something, you know what I'm saying? But that's it. I think that once you start showing people stuff like that and start talking like this, just openly like this, you know, like I think that it really just opens up people's minds, and that's all you can do. I mean, the advice is just keep going. I mean, there's no golden rule about it, and you know, like shortcuts are shortcuts in a way, like, you know, like programming. It's like I don't have to relearn assembly code. You know, it's like, dude, somebody already put the tough work in. Appreciate it. Add on it. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right before we jump into the wrap-up portion of the interview, I have one last question, which is, if you're consider yourself an amateur and don't call yourself a magician, what is it you do for a living?
Me? I'm a magician. I'm joking.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a magic. I work magic in the carnival. What are those things? The medieval festivals? I do Renaissance. Yeah, I do magic. MAGICK magic. I edit TV commercials for a living. I'm in advertising. That's my job. Okay. Yeah. In a sense, it is like magic, because you kind of have to tell a story within like 15 or 30 seconds. My teacher, my editing teacher once told me, and it always stuck in my head. So it is kind of like magic, where he goes, you know, like a jump cut. You know what a jump cut is? It's like when you just abruptly, all YouTube videos, it's just jump cuts, right? So if you do one jump cut, it's a mistake. 2, it becomes interesting. 3 or more becomes reality. Right? And it's interesting. Like, look at all YouTube videos. Like, anybody, you know, there's like 50 jump cuts, but your brain treats it like reality. You know, it doesn't even know so abrupt. Right? It's interesting, right? I'm not saying it's bad. There's nothing bad with it, right? But it's just interesting. And another one was, I had this shot in my apartment. It had this long hallway, right? And it has several rooms. And then I went in there, shot it, and then I realized I didn't have enough shots to cover, you know, the hallway of my apartment. And I was like, man, I don't think I can do it. It's just this might be fucked up. And then he just says, well, first of all, I don't know what the hell your apartment looks like. So you can make it whatever the hell you want, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's another interesting thing. It's like, I've been trying to do it where I know what it is, so it feels weird to me, right? But to them, they don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah,
they don't know what the apartment looks like.
That's funny.
Yeah, it also relates to magic. So now we're coming to the wrap-up part of the episode, which means we've got a bunch of rapid-fire-ish questions for you. You can answer them as slowly or longly as you like, and they are all just sort of to help the people at home. So the first is a question of the week. So we've got fans who are very excited about, answering questions and being a part of the conversation. So if there's a question that you have to ask the magicians about the world, whether it's an introspective question or a one that you want to hear the answer to, my count is we have about 1 million magicians here. So you're going to get quite a bit of answers from the listeners. So what question do you have for all the magicians?
A question for them?
Yeah, you can either maybe something for them to ask themselves, or either something that you'd love to hear what tons of magicians feel.
I don't know. Let's see. Why is there so many different versions of the double lift?
That's great.
That's a great question.
Why is there still so many of that? One of the other segments that we have. What? One of the other segments that we have is the endless chain of guests. So we want this podcast to go on for eternity, and one way to do that is to have each guest recommend somebody else to be on the podcast. So who do you think that we should have
definitely Alex Pandrea. Yeah.
Oh, we did that already.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I know.
Nobody else?
No Stanko. Should get him on.
Cool.
All right, cool. We will do our best. The next one, it's kind of similar to the magic question, but it is our magic PSA. So you basically have the floor. What is it you want to tell the magicians at home other than stop being
I guess that was my PSA. I mean, yeah. It's a good one. I guess I'm nicer now. I used to be like really Nazi about. Did not see that coming, right? Yeah, no. Let's see. I think it's just to. I don't know, man. I think we've just been talking about it. I don't really have a PS. It's just to. Let me say. Just think about your magic more, I guess. Like I don't know. I mean, that's stupid. Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, like a lot of people like learn something and then they read it in a book once and then they start doing it and then it becomes part of their repertoire and it never goes through their mind. I remember when I was in university, one of my math profs said something so funny. He said, learning in a university setting is the process where information goes from the notepad of the professor to the notepad of the student without passing through the brains of either of them. And I always thought that was funny. And I think about it in magic too. Sometimes we implement things and then we continue doing them and we've never really asked ourselves why we do it and what the point of it is. And if any of it could be better or if any of it sucks or anything like that. So to think about your magic is, it's not a trivial point at all.
I was about to say that. Whatever, dude. I guess there would be two things. I think coming up with it is one, try to come up with a one phase ambitious card and then try to make an effect out of it. And I think
that's a good challenge.
Interesting because I think that personally the double lift into the middle to the top is the strongest thing you can do in an ambitious card routine, but yet it's the first thing we do and we throw it away and then every other method becomes more degraded and more my favorite routine. You know what I'm saying? We're like, and then
for sure.
It's like, why is there so many phases? And then I remember somebody saying like, oh, well, how many phases should you have in ambitious cards? Like, oh, it's until they get bored. I'm like, oh, Jesus. And I go, yeah.
Why would you want to do
magic? And I go, why?
Bored?
I mean, you can kind of see somebody can go like 50 phases on ambitious card or something, right? But yeah, like, I guess the question would be like, have you ever seen, why don't we do a 50 coins across?
or like a 10, right? It's like, well, maybe because we don't have 50 unique ways of doing a shuttle pass, right? And so it's, so I think
awesome.
Ambitious Card is more like it's like your subtle way of trying to like show people your cool controls to the top, you know. So I think
right, yeah. You're like, look at all this practice I did when it's not really with the magic.
It's that glorification of method again, you know.
This exercise will help you. You can kind of see how my magic is very minimal, but yet now, I mean, I think the double lift is the best sleight of hand you can do. That's why it's so abused, because it's a good one is literally like you turning over a card, right? So then I guess this will force you to focus on presentation and effect more. Yeah,
for sure.
And I think the second one is to read a book called Several Short Sentences on Writing.
It is, just by my memory, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it's by Verlin Klinkenborg.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
you should read it. It will change your life about magic and just life in general. It's good. It'll
awesome.
You'll be surprised how close it is to magic. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm always excited when people recommend things that aren't magic to help magic, you know, like, I think that shows a real good understanding of what we do.
Yeah, there was a great part in the book where he says, you know, like, also, you know, you're like, oh, you want to be a writer and all this stuff. And he starts talking about like, you know, like, oh, so, you know, like a preposition within the 2-sentence comma, blah, blah, you know, like listing all these things. And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, you know? And then he's like, you know, and it's like, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, and then the next sentence he goes, did you know any of that? And then the next sentence he just says, it's basic. Right. And it's the same thing. Like a lot of people think they can write, right? I'm not a writer at all. I find these books very, very interesting. Like, you know, it just tells you that, you know, oh, you can wing it, you know, free flow and write. Like, no, it's nothing like that at all. You know, it's like, you gotta know your craft, you know, but you should read the book. It's amazing. It literally talks about, you don't need to even do a paragraph. Like paragraphs are pointless, right? Like you write, no, it's crazy. It's an amazing book and it's a quick read. So that's the second.
I'm ready to get my mind
bogged.
Yeah,
I will download
no, you should read it.
Sure.
Because it's very important. Just reading because you'll
okay, yeah, you'll just see it.
Yeah, you can see the structure. It's very important that you read it because it's also how you see it on the page. It's very important. Yeah.
Right,
for sure. And the last and final section of this is
second last.
I keep forgetting. Whatever section this is an opportunity for each one of us to go through the podcast, and you know, this episode that we just did and mention something that we think is a really valid take-home point. You know, we've been talking for over an hour, and you know, people are like walking their dogs and washing dishes, whatever the heck, while they're doing this, and you know, if there's one really important thing to take home. So for me, I really loved the question of, is it that difficult to XYZ? You know, like, is it really that hard to turn a card over? Is it really that hard to, you know, XYZ? And I think that's a really good question to ask in your magic about trying to, you know, make it better and more refined and less, you know, more efficient and less wasteful, because audiences recognize that stuff when you spread the deck to show the cards red and then close it back up and then sift through it in your finger and all this nonsense, right? So just that, can it be easier? Can it be simpler? Or is it that difficult? I think that's a beautiful question. Tyler, was there a favorite part for you?
Yeah, it was right in the beginning, was something you said that you worked on palming because you didn't know it was supposed to be hard. And it was the point I didn't get, like, actually manage to bring up in the episode, but there's so much like discouragement involved in magic where like you're a young magician and you see a trick and you say, I want to learn that. And they say, you're not there yet. Whereas you didn't have any of that. You didn't have the negative side of mentorship. You also didn't have, you know, the many positives that come with it. But, you know, there was no, I'm not at that stage. There was just right and wrong. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's not supposed to look like. which I just thought was super interesting. Tony, what about you?
Everything I said. Yeah, I remember all that stuff.
Beauty.
No,
it's all gem.
I think also, I think to your point about the palming thing, it is a very easy trap to fall into. I think the reason what you were saying about mentors, like restricting what you should learn, is you'll know it's a good reason when you're older, but you won't do it because you're a kid. Right. And you want to learn all the great stuff, right? Which is fine. Learn as much as you can before your hands like crap out on you. And then, you have to become like a mover or something. But no, what I mean is that you should play around with everything, right? But the only advice I would give as an old person would be just realize that's not the end of it, right? Right. And then I can tell you as a kid, I tried to learn all the coolest things and I thought that's what made me a magician. Okay. There's nothing wrong with learning as much as you can, but understand it as in the world of academics and craft. Okay. And then learn all that stuff. Get all that crap in there, right? And then you should realize that you can still do a trick with just one glide if the presentation effect is good enough, right? And then it's the marriage and put those together, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing I always say is I don't think any kid should learn magic until they're 18, and all they should learn is cardistry. I'm not joking. I honestly think that I've never in my life seen somebody that started doing flourishes and start dabbling in magic that sucked. Sleight hand wise, there's a dedication.
So interesting,
right? And also that's how their mind works, right? It's dedication, because they go, if I do this well, then that is my effect, right? I mean, I'm not saying this is all. I mean, like, but also cardistry kind of teaches you to make your hands feel normal with cards, right? I can tell if somebody's good or not just by the way they take cards out of the deck. It's just the way, how long have you lived with it,
Yeah, how comfortable are you with your tools?
That's the biggest thing.
Right?
And then when you're old enough, then you can understand how to present it to people.
And quickly, right before we wrap up this amazing interview, our last section is, do you have any plugs? Anything you want to shout out, projects you're working on, things people should go see or download
I just put out some work with Dan and Dave at artofmagic.com. I just put out my applications with the cherry control by Ricky Smith, which is a really cool way of doing a color change. It's very visual, and I put some cool tricks in there. My handling the inversion plot, and then I have another trick. It's like a 4x4 like color change routine thingy with some cool color changes in there. And then I have a download with just what we talked about, is the color change, but just kind of like my life work on it. It's not done. Nothing's ever done, but like, it'll get you on the right track. But a lot of these downloads, I told them when I went down there to film, is that a lot of the downloads are kind of like this, which is, why did I think about it, and just forcing you to kind of examining it too. And then I think hopefully I did an okay job, but I like to think of those downloads as like a Trojan horse for theory, and then just show you something so you don't get bored. So
that's actually really interesting. I showed my partner Brittany the trailers for your stuff, and she's like, "That's so crazy. Are you gonna buy it and learn how to do it?" And I was like, "Yes, I am, but I'm not going to do it. Like I'm not going to put in the work to learn the methods and the moves, because it's not the type of magic that I do personally. But I'm super interested in hearing Tony's take. Like, I wanted the more philosophical side, because I could tell from the trailer that there was a lot more to it than just put your pinky here, move it here, do this, do that. I was much more interested in hearing you break down and talk about, your work on the effects and slides.
And, that's basically, I mean, in a crutch of all things, that's the approach I like to go. You don't have to learn anything. In fact, there's better things we can do with our lives. But I think that, again, it's just to make people realize you can think about stuff like that. And I think that's, very important.
Awesome. And I think that if people want to understand sort of what it is, this might be a little bit of a taste and of sort of the theory that is bouncing around in your brain. And, very similarly, we started this podcast because we love theory and we love talking about all of these different finer details with everybody. So we don't have a Trojan horse. We just have a podcast an hour long for whoever the heck wants to be interested in it. So with that, Tony, I want to give you a big, huge thank you for coming to join us on the episode. Means the world for you to come on. And of course, I want to give a big thank you to all the people at home who listen to this. It's proof that you can focus on things other than how tricks work for about an hour and work on making your magic better without shoving your pinky
and also,
in the side of the
thank
deck.
Alex Pandrea
So,
for telling me I should be on.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Alex for that. He's gonna love that. And thank you so much, Tony, for coming to join us. Cheers, and to everybody at home, thanks so much. See you next Thursday. Well, there you have it, episode 90 of Discourse in Magic. I hope that you liked it, and I hope that you learned something. 2 quick reminders. First of all, I would love for you guys to come and check us out on Instagram if you haven't yet. We're doing some very cool things where I really want to hear your thoughts about it, so make sure to leave a comment. And number 2, if you listen to this right now on Google or Spotify or iTunes, I encourage you to head over to the internet and go to discourseinmagic.com so you can sign up for our newsletter. We often have really cool stuff going out. There's still blog posts and very, very tangible information on the website that I would love for you to get your hands on. There it is. See you next Thursday.